You look up and you see a hunter, or you see a bear, you see a dipper.
Yeah, it's a fundamental human trait. We are just hardwired to find the pattern. I mean, you give us random data points and we will absolutely draw a line between them to make a cohesive story.
It's how we survive, right? It's how we make sense of a chaotic, overwhelming universe.
Completely.
But what happens when the dots you're connecting aren't stars? What happens when they're real people, real tragedies? And the picture you're drawing is this massive, highly classified assassination plot.
That is where things get genuinely dangerous.
Yeah, and today we are opening a massive stack of sources to track a, frankly, wild viral delusion. The 2026 missing scientists conspiracy theory.
Right.
We're looking at a phenomenon claiming that scientists tied to UFOs, anti-gravity, and secret energy projects are being, well, systematically eliminated.
Which is quite the claim.
It's huge. And our mission for this deep dive isn't just to list off these claims. We want to contrast these sensationalist internet theories with the actual documented realities. We're going to explore how one single disappearance somehow catalyzed a frenzy that commanded the attention of the highest levels of the U.S. government.
And to understand that, we really have to understand the difference between raw data and a crafted narrative.
Okay, let's unpack this. On paper, this sounds like the plot of a Hollywood spy thriller. But what actually happens when internet sleuths start connecting dots that might not exist? Like, where does the story of this scale even begin?
Well, it begins with a profound misunderstanding of data, specifically surrounding one man. The inciting incident for this entire phenomenon, the catalyst, is the disappearance of William Neal McCasland on February 27, 2026.
Right, I saw his name all over the initial source material. He wasn't just a random civilian, was he?
Not at all. He was a 68-year-old former U.S. Air Force Major General. And importantly for the internet sleuths, he was the former commander of the Air Force Research Laboratory.
So a man with a serious military pedigree goes missing. If you're looking at this through the lens of a conspiracy theorist, what were the specific details of his disappearance that acted like, gasoline on the fire?
Oh, the optics, especially when viewed without any real-world context, were incredibly cinematic.
Like straight out of a movie.
Exactly. When he vanished from his home in Albuquerque, New Mexico, he left behind his phone, his prescription glasses, and his wearable tech devices.
Just left them all sitting there.
Yeah, but his hiking boots, his wallet, and a .38 caliber revolver were gone.
Wow.
Add to that the fact that he had a brief association with a group called To the Stars, Inc.
I know them, yeah.
Right, it's that prominent celebrity-led organization that promotes theories about unidentified aerial phenomena. Aliens.
So, I can completely see how the internet takes those specific data points. A former general, UFO ties, leaving his tracker devices behind, taking a gun into the desert, and instantly shouts, "Cover up! He knew too much."
Oh, the narrative absolutely writes itself. But, that's the danger of stripping away context.
Right.
Because the grounded reality paints a very different, much more somber and personal picture. First off, McCasland had been retired from the military for 13 years at that point.
13 years. That's a long time to be out of the loop.
Exactly. His wife, Susan, publicly stated that he only held very commonly held security clearances. He wasn't sitting on the military's most cutting-edge classified secrets.
And what about the UFO stuff?
Even his brief ties to the UFO community were largely just because he consulted on a fiction book.
Oh, wow. Okay, that changes the vibe completely. And the sources also mentioned a significant medical component to his disappearance, right?
A crucial component.
Yeah.
He was suffering from a chronic health issue. When he was reported missing, authorities immediately issued a silver alert.
Which is for elderly people, right?
Yeah, for those who might not be familiar, a silver alert is a specific public notification system used to find missing elderly individuals, usually those experiencing cognitive decline or severe health conditions.
Right.
The local Bernalillo County Sheriff stated clearly that there was zero evidence indicating foul play. This wasn't a covert extraction or a hit.
It was just a tragedy.
It was a heartbreaking situation of an older gentleman struggling with his health who took a gun and walked out into the desert.
So, if McCasland was this isolated, deeply personal tragedy, how did the internet suddenly decide he was victim number one of a sprawling nationwide hit squad?
By doing what the internet does best, data mining.
Oh, of course.
Social media users essentially used his tragic disappearance as a starting line. The logic was, well, if they got the general, who else did they get?
Right, looking for patterns.
They started scouring obituaries, police blotters, and news reports, which led to the creation of what became known online simply as the list.
Yes, the list. I spent a lot of time looking at this list in our research. Conspiracy theorists built this grand narrative by grouping together 10 or 11 deaths and disappearances. And the way it was presented online, you'd think this is a sudden coordinated strike.
Like it all happened at once.
Exactly. A purge happening over a few chaotic months in early 2026.
Yeah, timeline compression is a masterclass tactic in narrative building.
How so?
Well, when you scroll through a feed, an article from 2021 and a post from 2026 occupy the exact same physical space on your screen. They feel simultaneous.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. The sources show these 11 events were actually spread out over 4 years. I mean, if I tell you 11 people died over 4 years across the entirety of the United States, your alarm bells don't ring.
No, not at all.
But if the algorithm flattens time and tells you they all vanished right now, suddenly you're terrified.
Yeah, let's actually look at the individuals on this list, because this is where the conspiracy completely fractures under scrutiny. The theorists point to what they call the anti-gravity scientists. Can you walk us through those specific cases?
Sure. Ning Lai is one of the most frequently cited names. She was a genuinely brilliant physicist known for her theoretical work, but the reality of her passing is that she was 78 years old and died of Alzheimer's disease back in 2021.
Okay, so a natural, incredibly common tragedy.
Yes. Then there is Amy Eskridge, a 34-year-old scientist who died in 2022.
Her story was particularly difficult to read about.
It is a profound tragedy. She died by suicide. And her family explicitly released statements confirming she had suffered from severe, ongoing chronic pain.
It's just heartbreaking.
It really is. They stressed that they did not find her death unusual or suspicious in any way given her medical struggles.
It feels incredibly invasive that internet sleuths will completely ignore a grieving family's medical statement to prop up a sci-fi narrative.
It happens all the time, sadly.
But it doesn't stop there. The theorists also created a category of victims they call the secret keepers.
Right. They point to Joshua LeBlanc, a 29-year-old electrical engineer at NASA. He died in a single-vehicle crash when his Tesla caught fire.
A car crash.
A terrible car crash. Local authorities investigated and found zero evidence of foul play. It was just a devastating traffic accident. Another name is Michelle David Hicks, a 59-year-old former planetary scientist. His family openly confirmed he died of natural causes related to heart disease.
Wait, I am genuinely stuck on something here. I'm looking at another name on the secret keepers list. Nino Loureiro. He was a 47-year-old MIT plasma physicist.
Yes.
He was absolutely murdered, but the sources show he was a victim of a highly publicized mass shooting at Brown University. I remember seeing that on the news.
He was. And the FBI investigated that shooting extensively. They conclusively determined the shooter, Claudio Manuel Neves Valente, acted entirely alone.
So no grand conspiracy.
None. The motive was personal spite. It had absolutely no nexus to state secrets, terrorism, or espionage.
How does anyone look at a random, tragic active shooter event, an Alzheimer's death, and a car crash, and lump them together into a unified, classified assassination plot? It defies all logical sense.
It really does.
It's like going to a busy emergency room, finding 10 people with broken legs, and confidently declaring there's a highly trained, covert serial leg breaker on the loose.
All while completely ignoring the fact that one guy fell off a ladder cleaning his gutters.
Right. And another was an offender bender, and one tripped on a skateboard. It takes active, conscious effort to ignore the reality of how these people died. And to make matters even more bizarre, some of the people on this missing scientists list weren't even scientists.
What's fascinating here is how the internet strips away nuance to fit a predetermined narrative. The inclusion of Anthony Chavez and Melissa Casius really highlights the indiscriminate nature of the data mining.
Who were they?
Well, Chavez was a 78-year-old retired construction foreman. Casius was a 53-year-old administrative assistant at Los Alamos.
Not exactly top-secret propulsion experts.
Exactly. And according to her own family and state police records, Casius ran away of her own volition due to extreme financial stress. When you analyze the raw data, the only commonality is that these individuals lived in the United States, held jobs, and experienced a tragedy.
So we have to ask the critical question. How does the internet gloss over a mass shooting and a runaway administrative assistant to fit an alien conspiracy? Why do our brains fall for this?
It comes back to a psychological and sociological phenomenon called apophenia.
Epiphania.
Yeah, medical sociologist Robert Bartholomew defines apophenia as the human tendency to perceive meaningful links in entirely unrelated events.
Like the constellations we talked about earlier.
That exact mechanism, but running in absolute overdrive. You see, when we solve a puzzle or find a hidden pattern, our brains actually reward us with a little hit of dopamine.
Oh, wow. So the internet essentially gamified finding the pattern. It's giving people a dopamine hit for connecting dots that don't exist.
Yes. The environment primes the public. Social media postings planted the initial seed. There is a coordinated attack on American scientists.
And once that idea is in your head,
Once you adopt that specific lens, you begin reinterpreting random, tragic deaths as sinister. Michael Shermer, the editor-in-chief of Skeptic magazine, explained the methodology behind this perfectly.
what did he say?
He noted that theorists didn't start with a murder and look for a suspect. They started by scraping the biographies of anyone who died for any reason. They used keyword searches, looking for any peripheral connection to UFOs, the military, defense, space, aerospace, or propulsion.
Okay, if you cast a digital net that wide across a country of 330 million people, you are guaranteed to catch something.
Inevitably. I mean, if you stare long enough at random noise, your brain will eventually force a shape onto it. This raises an important question about how the modern digital landscape acts as a massive, unprecedented accelerator for apophenia.
Because the algorithms push it.
Exactly. Recommendation algorithms don't care about nuance or medical records. They reward the people who find the most terrifying, sensational links with engagement, views, and monetization. Fear keeps people scrolling.
But this digital pattern matching doesn't just stay trapped inside our phones, though.
Yeah.
It crashes violently into the real world.
It really does.
The fallout for the families involved is an enormous part of the source material we reviewed. We aren't just talking about abstract data points. We are talking about fathers, daughters, and spouses.
The trauma inflicted on these families is severe. The sources show an overwhelming rejection of the theory by the grieving relatives. Michelle David Hicks's daughter remarked that she couldn't help but laugh at the sheer absurdity of it because her father's medical issues were well known.
Right, but it wasn't funny for everyone.
No. His brother experienced genuine anguish. He spoke about how heartbroken he was that his brother's legitimate, lifelong scientific legacy was being overshadowed by what he called a Bigfoot conspiracy theory.
That is so deeply unfair. And Carl Grillmere was another name on the list, right?
Yes, he was a retired Caltech astrophysicist who was murdered in a carjacking. His widow publicly called the conspiracy absolute nonsense.
These families are being repeatedly re-traumatized by internet sleuths who are turning their very real personal grief into a mystery puzzle to be solved for clicks.
It's awful. And, when you step back from the emotion and look at the hard statistics, the entire premise of a purge collapses instantly.
Let's get into the numbers.
Science writer Mick West provided some vital mathematical context that completely dismantles the narrative. Do you know how many people work in top-secret, cleared positions in the U.S. aerospace and nuclear sectors?
I imagine it's a large number, but give me the exact figure.
Over 700,000 people?
Wait, 700,000, that's the population of a major American city.
Exactly. So when you apply standard baseline mortality rates to a population of 700,000 people over a 4-year period, you would statistically expect around 250 of those individuals to succumb to homicides or suicides. And you would expect thousands more to die from natural causes like heart disease or Alzheimer's. So finding 10 or 11 specific cases over 4 years isn't a spike. It is drastically below the statistical expectation.
So from a purely mathematical standpoint, there is no anomaly. The cluster doesn't exist.
Furthermore, U.S. Representative James Walkinshaw pointed out the logistical absurdity of the whole idea.
What was his take?
He noted that the U.S. employs thousands of nuclear and aerospace scientists. Even if a foreign adversary or a shadow government were trying to sabotage a U.S. program targeting just 10 random individuals across vastly different disciplines.
Right, a retired general, an MIT plasma physicist, a NASA engineer.
Exactly. Taking out those specific disconnected people wouldn't impact operations in any meaningful way. It simply doesn't make strategic or operational sense.
Well, this is the part of the deep dive where the story elevates from a dark corner of Reddit into international news. Because despite the families begging people to stop, despite the statistical reality, and despite the united expert consensus, the federal government is actually investigating it.
Yeah, the institutional response has been completely unprecedented for an internet theory of this nature. It is a striking juxtaposition.
It really is. Now, just to be clear to you listening, We are not taking a political side here or endorsing these federal investigations. We are merely reporting on the profound tension in our sources between the expert consensus that these are random tragedies and the unprecedented official scrutiny.
Right. It's about the contrast. On one hand, you have medical sociologists, data scientists, and local law enforcement shouting from the rooftops that there is no connection. On the other hand, you have the highest levels of the federal government acknowledging and acting on the narrative.
The sources confirm that the FBI is actively spearheading a review into the missing and deceased scientists, and the House Oversight Committee, led by Chair James Comer, is actively seeking information from various federal agencies.
And the inquiry reached the executive branch as well.
Right. President Donald Trump was asked directly about the theory by reporters. He called it pretty serious stuff, stated that they were looking at it, hoped it was a coincidence, and directed further questions to FBI Director Kash Patel.
And Patel himself went on the record stating that if there are any connections leading to nefarious conduct or a conspiracy, the FBI will make the appropriate arrests.
It even came up in the briefing room. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt addressed it, stating that the White House is working with agencies and the FBI to holistically review all the cases together to identify any potential commonalities.
So we have a reality where a digital theory born out of a tragic disappearance, fueled by the human flaw of apophenia and accelerated by engagement algorithms, has commanded the time and resources of the FBI, Congress, and the White House.
Which creates an incredibly dangerous feedback loop. I mean, when the government announces we are investigating this holistic list, the internet sleuths don't view it as a routine checking of boxes.
No, they interpret it as ultimate validation.
Exactly. They say, look, the FBI is involved. We were right all along. It entrenches the belief and makes the narrative almost impossible to dismantle, regardless of what the final investigation actually concludes.
It does.
So what does this all mean for you? Why dedicate a deep dive to this specific internet phenomenon? Because in an age of absolute information overload, this story's a masterclass in why critical thinking is a survival skill.
It really is.
It exposes how vulnerable every single one of us is to apophenia when we are drowning in data. We desperately want the world to make sense. We want bad things to happen for a profound reason, even if that reason is a shadowy global cabal. Because the alternative...
To just get sick, that fatal accidents happen.
And that violence is sometimes completely random. That alternative is terrifying to process.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's a harsh reminder that knowledge is only valuable when it is properly contextualized. A data point without context isn't insight, it's a weapon.
That's a great way to put it.
A list of names without the medical records, the police forensics, and the family statements is just a hollow story waiting to be hijacked by whoever has the loudest microphone. We have to train ourselves to tolerate the discomfort of random events without forcing them into a neat cinematic narrative box.
Which leaves us with a lingering thought for you to mull over today. We established that apophenia, that powerful drive to see patterns, is an ancient evolutionary trait. It was designed to help our ancestors spot the subtle pattern of a predator hiding in the bushes. It kept humanity alive.
Right.
But what happens to our biology when we take that ancient hypervigilant brain and suddenly plug it into an infinite digital forest? A forest where every single global tragedy, every car crash, every unsolved mystery is pushed directly to our screens 24 hours a day. Are we doomed to spend our lives seeing predators in the data that simply aren't there?
That might be the defining challenge of the information age.
Remember to look at the stars, but remember that the lines between them are drawn by us. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.